The US government is slapping a wide range of sanctions on Russia for what it's described as the full scope of Moscow's harmful foreign activities. That includes alleged election interference and cyber warfare. Washington is expected to expel a number of Russian diplomats and make it harder for Moscow to access international markets. The latest moves come just 2 days after US President Joe Biden raised the possibility of a summit with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin.
Washington needs to understand that there is a price to pay for the degradation in bilateral relations. The responsibility for what is happening lies entirely with the United States.
Well, for more on this, Matthew Walker joins us now from London. He's an associate director at the investigations firm Raedas and specialises in disputes and litigation support in Russia. Welcome back to the program, Matthew. Now, these sweeping new sanctions are the first such measures against Moscow from the Biden administration, and they do mark a sharp reversal from the more pro-Russia stance that Donald Trump had. What is the Biden administration trying to achieve here?
Yeah, look, I think in order to sort of understand the Biden administration's approach to Russia, you really need to look internally within the United States. I think in the lead up to the election, Biden was pretty clear that he was going to take a tougher stance on Russia, certainly in comparison to Donald Trump. At least that was the rhetoric at the time. But I think that how this will play out and how the sanctions environment against Russia evolves over time, very much is dependent on how the domestic political situation in America changes and how the rhetoric around Russia and Putin and spies and hacking and all of those things changes and evolves over time.
Can I talk more about that? Because Washington says it's imposing these new sanctions over, quote, the full scope of Russia's harmful foreign activities ranging from election interference and cyber warfare. Can you tell us more about what Russia is alleged to have done here?
Yeah, sure. So these particular sanctions are actually the second round of sanctions that Biden has introduced under his presidency. The first were targeting or in relation to the poisoning of the opposition figure Alexei Navalny. But this particular round of sanctions, which is a lot more expansive and extensive, is really in response to two things. The first one is the hack of a US company called SolarWinds, which provides diagnostics monitoring software to a range of US government agencies and the like. And the allegation from the US intelligence agencies is that the hackers had access to around about 16,000 government computers, and they could steal confidential information and spy on users on those computers at the time. And the second area that's caused the imposition of these sanctions relates to Russian influence around the 2020 election, and principally that's in relation to getting Donald Trump back into office and to create a misinformation campaign around or against Joe Biden and the Democratic campaign. So they're the principal two issues that brought about these sanctions.
Now, these new measures include a directive banning US financial institutions from trading in newly issued Russian state debt. The move would presumably make it harder for Moscow to raise funds on international markets. What sort of impact will that measure and the other measures have on Russia's economy?
Look, I think it's worth sort of looking at this in context. This round of sanctions. So sanctions have been on Russia from the US in various different shades since 2014, and so since then, Russian state-owned banks and oil and gas companies and other Russian companies have been prohibited from getting funds from US financial institutions or other individuals, and the EU kind of followed on this trend. So the Russian economy is pretty resilient to this by now. I think it is a slightly different approach this time than some of the other sanctions we've seen under Obama and under Trump, in that it is targeting Russian debt, Russian bonds. But I think if the price of Russian bonds decreases, the Russian central bank could buy them back. Russia has immense foreign capital reserves, some of the largest in the world, and generally speaking, its economy is in okay shape. It's sort of created a bit of a fortress for itself, focusing very much on defence and not really very much on offence.
Okay, Matthew Walker from Raedas in London. Thank you again for joining us on the program.